Hello and welcome to another installment of the We Are Change talk show, coming to you from the safety of the studio. But rest assured, I'll be back on the battlefield soon. As many of you know, it is an absolute war zone here with these draconian restrictions. I've been shot at with rubber bullets, sprayed with tear gas, slammed on the concrete, and arrested twice in 1 week for reporting on protests. I sincerely thank those that have supported me through this difficult time. It's with your help that I'm able to bring you coverage of what's taking place. But we have a very special guest for you today, Justin from We Are Change Orlando in Florida, who has been working tirelessly to expose corruption and has been an inspiration to many. So let's go to that interview now. So joining me is Justin from We Are Change Orlando in Florida. It's a pleasure to have him on the show, doing groundbreaking work. As you know, it is a total nightmare here in Australia. We have police attacking peaceful protesters. Please tell the viewers what the situation is like where you are.
Oh man, it makes me grateful every day where I am because I watch the footage of what you all are dealing with, and it's nowhere near it. We all know what's coming, but we still have it very good in certain places of America. We're protesting monthly, almost weekly now, and we never have issues with the police, especially in Florida, especially in Orlando. Other parts of the U.S., yes, the police can get a lot worse, but we really haven't seen it yet. And I think that obviously that will come when the numbers grow and when things get a little bit more tense. But it's been very tame in America.
That's reassuring to hear, because what we're witnessing is elderly being attacked, thrown to the ground, pepper sprayed. They show no mercy whatsoever. It is total tyranny, and the reputation of the force has been tarnished. They patrol the streets and they engage in predatory behaviour. I've been stalked countless times, and yeah, just the whole vibe of the place here, it's very nasty and very negative. So to see that there's still places in the world where people can still frequent their towns, communities and not be in fear, it's very positive to see. Hopefully it's not widespread and it just takes over and becomes out of control worldwide with this new world order, which seems to be what's unraveling, isn't it?
It absolutely is, and like I said again, I'm very happy to be in Florida, especially of all states in the United States, because we seem to be the one that's kind of like, we're not going with this anymore. And now it's become our reputation, and our governor has really taken that stance. But I like to also remind people it is not perfect here. People say Florida is free, Florida is so free, but we still have masked children in masks. We still have mask mandates in places. I can't go speak at the school board meeting without wearing one, or they'll arrest me or kick me out. So, and we still have parents getting arrested at school board meetings. We still have things happening, but just not to the scale. It's almost like I don't have I don't have the ability to talk about it with you because it's so bad where you are. I just have to be like, happy to see what we have still. But it is the new world order coming, and we know it's a playbook. I wonder, do you have any insight on why you think, because we didn't see Australia going this route. I don't think a lot of people did. How did it happen? I mean, what did you just get chosen as this is where we're going to do the test run? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
That's a very good question. There are reports that the Premier here, Dan Andrews, received tens of millions of dollars in order to have this as the testing ground. It's like the beta test for the New World Order here. And yeah, the way it's been carried out, we have the riot squad firing rubber bullets. I've been sprayed with tear gas. And we see these riot squads and they have a patch and it's the Predator logo. So yeah, a lot of people are living in fear, afraid to leave their homes. It's really devastating to see.
Well, and I can remember when, and like I told you, the only reason it's not like that in America is because we haven't been pushed to that point. I remember in Standing Rock, for those that know, over in North Dakota, when that whole thing was going on, there were tens of thousands of people showing up to that. The police got the help of the federal government and started using instigators and infiltrating and using military techniques. They were using chemical weapons. It was like a war zone. And this was on innocent, peaceful protesters, you know, elderly Native American women with feathers on their knees praying at the police line. And they were, you know, we had a journalist's arm get blown off, a young girl. She almost lost her arm. It's so they will resort to those tactics, push come to shove. And that's what we've noticed. And that's why I have to keep telling people, you know, we have a lot of people fighting this fight, especially in America, that are very conservative minded. And that's great. You know, if that's who's going to die on this hill with me, then that's who's going to die on this hill with me. Because I'm not, you know, we aren't partisan with We Are Change. But they're very still entrusting in the police. And I think we have to remind ourselves that when push comes to shove, they choose the oppressor. You know, there's very few. It ends up being the minority of the ones that stand up and say, this is wrong. They end up saying, I'm just doing my job. And that's the most dangerous phrase, as you know.
It certainly is. And hopefully they get punished for that. Nuremberg 2.0. You recently had protests there for Disney employees and firefighters, which was very powerful. Can you enlighten the viewers on that one, please?
Yeah, so I realized that the firefighters were standing up, and it looked like the biggest group. There was 500 of them roughly, and you know that's almost half of that force. And they were going to stand up and say no. And I realized that if we get with this group and we give them the thrust that they need, we can maybe stop this in our county. And for those that don't know, we're one of the biggest counties in Florida, Orange County, and for something to happen here, it can trickle down and around. Well, these firefighters, we started showing up to the public meetings with the mayor. We started speaking against him. We started having protests. They started taking legal action. And we got the mayor to back off. And he has now relaxed the mandate. They still get written up and they're going to put them through the ringer, and the battle's not over. But the fact that we got the public pressure on him enough to get them to back off, it's working. And now we're getting the Disney employees involved, and I'm looking for large, powerful bodies of people like firefighters or Disney workers, because there's so many of them. And if we can team up, you know the answer. It's united non-compliance. You know, if half or around half of your workforce says no, they have to rescind the mandate. Like, they just don't have a choice. And we've seen it happen with certain hospitals and very large companies in America. They're like, sorry, we can't go through with this because we would lose everyone.
Yes, very important to have people working together and unity. We had construction workers here and they were greatly impacted by the tyranny, and then everybody joined forces and get the message out in a very powerful way, working together. There was daily protests, and yeah, it was wonderful to see people getting that message out. Very powerful. And you've delivered powerful speeches as well at the council. And tell us about some of the accomplishments there. I know it's been very well received.
Yeah, so lately I just started going more and more. You know, we started showing up to school board meetings with lots of parents, but a few of us were also going to these city commission meetings where the mayor and the city commissioner speak, and just taking advantage of that public comment period. You know, sometimes you're not always going to convince those people up there. They're already bought off or brain dead. So you're taking it almost as an education opportunity for everyone in the room, everyone watching, and the news will show up. You can inspire other people to go speak out. And now that we've got the firefighters going in there, the media is coming, and it's really stirring the pot. So like I said, we found a bit of a strategy that's working. So I just keep going to these meetings. And to be honest with you, these commissioners are so clueless that I literally just let them speak, and then I go back in there and correct all their false statements. And it's been getting great traction online. If I can stay out of, the censorship bans, but it's really been working, and it's encouraging other people to stand up. You know, I've got people in one of the city council buildings messaging me from the second floor going, me and, a couple other workers are watching you from this room. We're cheering you on. You know, I wish we could be there, but so many people are in fear of losing their jobs and repercussions of speaking out. So it's nice to know that I'm able to give some of those people a voice at these meetings. And I'm going to keep going because they seem to be working right now.
Wonderful. And that's excellent what you're doing there. Sadly, it's not until people are impacted negatively that they decide to take action. And that's when you see the resistance form. So, yeah that's That's what it takes sometimes for people to hit rock bottom or face financial ruin. And what's taking place here, it's catastrophic. We have people being broken down mentally, financially, and emotionally. And it's led to the rate of suicides absolutely skyrocketing.
Yeah.
So that's
We're dealing with
devastating to
that
see.
as well. Yeah, there's you know, I forget where it was. I just read it, but someone had cited. Oh, it was like an op-ed in the newspaper. It was like an opinion, but someone had spoke about moving down to Florida, and then where they were, there were no problems with any of the children. There were no issues, you know, and they're just, it's just this unfounded fear that they keep pushing this on, and the way that they justify it, it just blows me away. But there's, like, you know, there's so many people hooked into it now. It's hard for them to see their way out of it.
It certainly is. That's right. The outlook becomes very grim, and it's hard to think positive during these difficult times. What we see here is the scanning of QR codes. They're using track and trace measures, which is a total invasion of privacy. Have they implemented anything like that where you are?
No, and our governor here in Florida, you know, he's not perfect, and I don't trust any politician, but he has put in place a ban on no company can ask the public for show a negative test result. So it's still kind of doing it in a way. So we're probably going to have a protest outside of the first venue that does that. But it's almost like it's coming here, but it's just not as on the fast train that it is with you. We're just getting it much slower now. New York and California, you can't go to a bar or a gym without a vaccine. It's very stark difference from New York City to, or, you know, Orlando, Florida.
Right. It seems to be you're in a safe zone there, and people are quite awake to the tyranny. And I believe that could have possibly have been a godsend in these difficult times. People counteract some of the measures that are put in place, and that allows you to hold on to some of your freedoms.
Exactly. I think that does help. And Florida has kind of become a safe haven. You know, I do, in part of my work in my day job, you know, I'm seeing a lot of people relocating to Florida. And they were before this whole situation, but now it's like, let's just get down there. And typically it's people that are for freedom and more for less, you know, tyrannical measures. So hopefully they're not going to plan some major false flag on the entire state of Florida, because they're sure like, you know, ushering us all down here into one place, Florida and Texas.
Yeah. And you've had several interactions with Mayor Demings, and that's had some positive results, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I've gotten word lately that they are not happy with me at all. And apparently these meetings are just really getting under their skin. But, like, you know, like I've pointed out to him, you know, I asked him yesterday, we had a meeting. I haven't even got a chance to post this video yet, but I called him basically out on his lies, and he told me that I was a liar at the end of my speech. And I said, well, where, you know, show me. And he couldn't. And they continued, like I told him, just keep digging that hole, because every time he speaks, he's just chucking away and burying himself more in a big pile of BS. And then I have more material to go back in. So I got really lucky and confronted Mayor Demings in the elevator a few weeks back. Just by happenstance, I was in the building doing some sneaky work of handing out flyers, and I happened to run into him in the elevator, and I confronted him about mandating all of his employees of the county to take the vaccine. He danced around the question and, you know, ran off from me once he got out of the elevator, but it was a great interaction. And since then, I've been at these meetings with firefighters almost every other week, and he definitely remembers who we are now. So it's nice to be a thorn in their side. He is a great example of Florida is much freer than the rest of the world, but you get into a very large city center where Orlando is, and in Orange County, it is completely dominated by people who vote for Joe Biden and wear masks and believe the science and every et cetera, et cetera. So we have some tough places in Florida, but we're also still the holdout, you know.
Yeah.
It's a big state.
It's very important to hold these politicians accountable for their actions, because when people stay silent, that's virtually giving the approval for them to go ahead, and then they have free reign of tyranny. So we have to keep the pressure on. That's very fundamental. And you guys rallied against the GMO mosquitoes. and they're virtually playing mad scientist with nature, aren't they?
I know. And I mean, everything that I feel like I'm fighting, I feel like Bill Gates has his hand in somehow. And, it's amazing. And, he actually had funding at one time to Oxitec, the British company. And you're right. I mean, it sounds like a Jurassic Park movie where they, try to create this thing and it'll be just fine. And then they release it into the wild just for whatever motive. And we have unintended consequences. And that's what we've always preached about those mosquitoes. And they ended up releasing them in the Florida Keys. We're in the middle of what that's going to do or how that's going to pan out. Hopefully it's just a grand failure and they all just, aren't able to mate and do what they wanted them to do at all. But we don't know yet. I haven't really heard too much from my contacts since everything went through. But gosh, we fought that for almost, I didn't personally, but they fought it for almost 10 years. I got in it and it was 4 or 5 with me, but they fought it for a very long time. They were able to accomplish it in Brazil and the Cayman Islands and had some failed experiments there. But each time they brought it to Florida and Texas, it was very hard to push through. So I'm glad we did hold it off so long, but they did get to release them.
Very sad what's happening. They're out of control and they just get intoxicated with power, these globalists, and then they unleash complete tyranny. It's very dangerous. I've been out to the Australian Radiation Protection and Nuclear Safety Agency twice, campaigning against 5G. The towers, It's very dangerous and deceptive. They try and disguise them as trees and other structures, don't they? And I know you've been relentless trying to put a stop to that too, haven't you?
Yeah, they do the same thing here. Orlando was chosen to be one of the pilot cities for this smart rollout. And they frame it, as they frame it as environmentalism, sustainability, but they really are just rolling out the smart grid. And it's total surveillance, total control, nothing to do with cell phone service. We've got these towers all over Orlando, Florida, and I live right in the heart of it. No one has ever gotten better cell phone service or anything. It's nothing to do with that. And we've tried to fight it, but here in America, they passed a law where local governments have no say over the implementation of 5G towers. So I've spoke at city council meetings in the past about that, and they even somewhat claim to agree with me and say, you kind of have valid concerns, but all of our power was stripped. If you want to get in contact with the state or the federal government and try to get that fixed, have at it. But that's another battle I haven't been able to take on. And there's been other ways that people have sort of been able to stop 5G towers in their communities, but I've always said it, there's no real formula yet. It's just, you get very lucky if you cause enough stir a certain type of way. Maybe it gets moved down the street, but it's very difficult. It's one of those things where I think we're going to have to accept that we're not going to stop those towers. You're just going to have to mitigate your exposure as much as possible.
Yeah, the towers and the smart meters, it's a radiation soup, isn't it, that people are living in? And it's not about a stronger Wi-Fi connection, because that's already adequate. People can already make and receive calls. So yeah, you can see it's a targeted effort to increase sickness in the communities. And that's what they're effectively doing, isn't it?
We know is what they're saying is a lie, and that we have to be as prepared and informed as possible going forward, because they're hell-bent on an agenda. And I think that when the whole world shut down, me and you and even people who weren't into this stuff started to realize that, which is a silver lining. I think we're getting a big chunk of new people ready to stop believing the lies and start questioning their life, start questioning their beliefs. And that's when you stop giving your consent and power to the government so much.
Yeah, certainly. And what we see here is relentless streams of propaganda on the television. They just do not stop. Every time you switch it on, stay indoors, sanitize, QR codes, scan, and people are brainwashed to the point that they become hostile if anybody brings forward information that contradicts what they're hearing on their television. So we have to battle that as well. Do you see a lot of that? I know they use it in a lot of cartoons and children's.
Oh, it's awful. It's so bad too. It's in everything. You drive by billboards and they're the kids shows, like you said, and it's just constant propaganda. I do see hope a little bit though. I saw, I'm not a fan of Fox News, but Fox News ran coverage on, your all's craziness over there. And they said the quote, you know, it looked more like Tiananmen Square. It looked like China. Wait, is this Australia? And she's like, what's happening there? And they were talking to, I guess, some so-called independent journalist. Maybe he is, but if he was on Fox, I have to be skeptical. They claimed that he was, you know, covering it. And he was like, I just grew up here in Australia. I never would have thought this would come to this. So we need more national, international attention like that will shine a light and be like, this is wrong, what's happening over there. And we can't let this continue, and we can't let it spread to anywhere else. Because like you said, at what point are we have warrants out for people sneezing in an elevator? I mean, what are the rules? You can't leave a certain distance from your home, right?
Yeah, exactly. 10-kilometer limits. That's right. And as soon as police see someone without a mask, they immediately try and question them. They ask for exemptions. They ask for permits. They ask for ID. Now, back in the day, if they asked for ID, you'd simply say, well, I'm not operating a motor vehicle, therefore I'm not obligated to produce any such identification. And usually common law rights would take precedent. But we see our rights getting trampled on here, human rights violated, and they just refuse to listen. I was arrested twice and standing up for my grounds, even quoting Supreme Court cases where people have had a victory, and they just don't want to hear it. They just keep over and over again, where's your ID? Where's your ID? Until they get physical. So, you know, I've had bruises all over me, still in a bit of pain from it. These people are just relentless. You see the violence in their eyes. There's no compassion. It's like they've been psychologically programmed to have no empathy. And that's what we're seeing here. They become very hostile. Any more than 10 kilometers from your house, and you're looking at receiving large fines. I recently sent a lot of my fines back. You know, they're unconstitutional and unlawful. A lot of people aren't paying their fines. We've seen a lot of them just disappearing off the system because they can't enforce it. One fella I interviewed at a night protest, he received a $5,000 fine for having lunch in a park. That's the sort of insanity that we're seeing.
Oh my gosh. Now, is this type of stuff happening across the country, or is this only happening in the large city areas? You know, if you're out in the...
We're popping the worst of it here in Victoria. But but people are still suffering. Sydney as well, lockdowns all the way up the coast. Pretty much they're trying to lock everyone down. But yeah, we're really suffering the worst. Recently, there was a protest here. A lot of people gathered at a shrine. It was a memorial, and they were fired upon with rubber bullets. They brought in the heavies, reinforcements, and that is an international war crime, what's taken place. You know, it's the suffering just continues, and it seems unavoidable, and there's no escaping it. They've locked down the borders. You can't cross there, and they're using every resource necessary to attack the public and create fear.
Do you think that part of the reason Australia may have been chosen for this agenda was because your Second Amendment is not in state? Like, you don't have that like we do?
Absolutely. There's a lot of that as well. And a lot of US citizens are saying, well, you got yourself into this mess when you relinquished your right to bear arms. And
I still think hopefully your saving grace will be the internet, will be you know, they can try to shut it down, but I mean, how long can you turn off everything over there and just tell the world, sorry, you can't see it? Like, it's going to get out. You know what I mean? We've seen videos in North Korea, and we're going to see videos in Australia. So I think that will hopefully be your saving grace. We just have to continue to get the information out, because until the national, international spotlight is on it, you're right, it will continue. It sucks because it almost like it does have to get really bad for just a little bit for people to go, oh my gosh, what have we done? Because if it just stays bad, you know, like this, it has to almost spike to get really ugly. And I mean, I don't know how much uglier, you know, eating in the park or rubber bullet. I mean, I shared the picture with a guy with the rubber bullet wounds all down his back. I mean, telling people, I watched police officers were telling people to go one way, and then one of their officers would go around to the other side and hit them with something as the rest of his group's telling him to go that way. I mean, that's just abuse. I mean, just relentless.
it certainly is. And you were right on point there, where they're interfering with live streams. They're shutting down Wi-Fi connections. that's a sign of guilt when they go out of their way to stop people broadcasting. If they had nothing to hide, if there was no police brutality taking place, they would encourage people to film. But
Right.
yes, it's very deceptive what they're doing. People were
And they
trying
do
to
that.
report and they couldn't do it. It kept dropping out.
Yep. Whenever we get a large enough thing going on in a major city here in America, the most prominent independent journalists on the ground always lose their streams right at critical moments. They just can't go live. It always gets shut down. I mean, and it's been exposed before. I think, you've probably seen it. The FBI was watching everybody in Occupy. They used to watch activists in Houston, Texas. My friend Derek Bros has probably dealt with that. It's very commonly used.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's devastating to see. And the tyranny gets to the point where it's very evil when people cannot visit loved ones in retirement villages, attend funerals, and they've even gone as far as shutting down a church service here many times and arresting a pastor for trying to conduct that worship. So you can see it's very satanic what's taking place, isn't it?
It is. And they've done the same thing here. We've had that happen in select places where people were literally outside of the church singing outside, and they showed up and arrested them, and we just started taking them off to jail as they're standing there singing. I mean, what kind of iconic image is that you will walk people away to jail that are just singing at church? Like you said, what has come to these police officers, these enforcers? Where's their morality? Where's their empathy for these people? I've seen some of them say, I don't want to be doing this, but I have no choice. I get it. I get it. You have a family, you have a paycheck, but at some point, I mean, well, why are you getting paid to brutalize people? And why are you okay with that?
Exactly. That's the question. They are obviously heartless and will do anything for a wage. And what we see as well here, law enforcement, they don't even have their name on their badge anymore. It's just a number. And when you ask for their first name and surname, they refuse to give it.
Yeah, that's not good, because that means that's just more questions to ask. Why are you hiding yourself? What are you planning to do? Like, yeah, it's not good. We've seen it here. We've seen them do that. Where that's not good. Especially, I mean, I even saw one video. It looked like they were in military gear,
Yeah.
getting out of vehicles and stuff. And we've got here in New York, they just fired a lot of our deadlines hit this week, mandatory for hospital workers and different types of companies. They fired tens of thousands of nurses in New York, and they're going to bring in the National Guard to replace their positions. We had a bunch of school bus drivers quit in one city, and the National Guard was brought in. So what, I mean, is the military just going to take over all the occupations, and all the peasants are going to be sent home to fend for themselves? I mean, it's just really, people have got to wake up soon, because this is not going good. I really had some optimism about, when was it? Everything's going so fast. It was maybe 2 months ago, 3 months ago. I think we started to see things, open back up more around the world even, and just get sort of back to normal. But the recent announcements here in America, the recent developments in Australia have just really taken a turn for the worst.
Yeah, it certainly has. And they're even making threats here on the news. For people that don't comply, they will be suffering indefinitely. And even along the lines where, if you don't go ahead with this agenda, we're coming at you lock, stock and barrel. Like, they're virtually making threats on the television and trying to instill fear in people. They're using every tactic available to try and get people to comply with this tyranny. And what we see as well, I'm sure is happening there, families turning on each other,
Yeah.
if any, and especially at gatherings, special occasions, if everybody, people start standing up for their rights, a lot of people, it's divide and conquer. And that's what's happening on a mass scale. It's an age-old strategy, and it seems to be working for a treat for them, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. I mean, I can't tell you how many people have told me, I wasn't allowed at Christmas last year. I wasn't allowed at so-and-so's birthday because you're going to get fired anyway. So you might as well stand up now, while we still have the ability. Your situation highlights a point someone made at our last rally so well, because she said something, and I caught it on a soundbite and put it in our video. And then she said, stand up while you still can, Assemble while you still can. And that, she was just kind of saying what she was saying, but it kind of hit me like, wow, that's a really good point. There's some people right now that they can't. They literally can't. You'll get fined, you will get hit, you will get shot with they say less than lethal rounds, but as close range and as where they're shooting people, those could absolutely be lethal.
Certainly is. And having your employment or travel, being able to go on holidays, it's not worth losing your life for. And, that's what it all boils down to. You've been very active, getting the message out, exposing corruption, virtually doing everything in your capacity, haven't you? Even putting up banners on bridges. Talk us through some of your initiatives that have been put in place. Maybe a lot of the viewers might get some ideas as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I want to encourage people, if you go check out afterwards any of the work I've done, a good friend of mine, Josh Coleman, started this campaign because of censorship. He said, I'm going to hit the streets with these really big, bold signs. And it evolved into highway banners, 100 feet long, over an overpass. So you can reach thousands of people in just a matter of hours. We did airplane flyover messages. We did billboards, and basically just started crowdfunding and getting people to donate money. And then we would buy these massive banners. And how can we reach 50,000 people in 3 hours? Well, go to the biggest race in the country, the Daytona 500, or show up at the Super Bowl. And we'd show up at the Super Bowl dressed as referees with the whistle and the black and white striped shirts, the whole thing. And everyone's like, it's drawing attention. The media loves it. And anything to get our message out there. And it has inspired more people to do it. Joshua Coleman created a really amazing machine, and activists around the country, even the world, have replicated it. I know Michael, I think is his name, who does MMAMV, Millions March, Australia. Michael Sims, I think is his name. Yeah, he replicated it as well. And it's just amazing to see that I think it was last November, in 50 states and like 7 countries, we all dropped the same banner over the highways. And we educated, who knows, maybe 1 million people. And our motto's always been, if the government and industry will refuse to give informed consent, that's what we're going to do. And the campaign has been great. We've reached tons of people. Everyone loves it. It's different. It's creative. So people are excited to donate to it, which has really helped us kick it off. And we're going to keep doing it. What do we got next? Our next one's probably going to be the opening season of the Orlando Magic. So when the NBA starts, there's a lot of NBA players against the really coming to a head. And we're probably going to do the referee thing again and go dress up and go out there with the signs. So it's really a good time. And people are more receiving to your message when you're like this very organized, cohesive group in costume. When we're dressed as like the pit crew at the race in these red jumpsuits, people are less likely to come start cussing you out, but it's just all about your approach and softening it up a little bit, because it's already a tough topic to talk about.
That's a brilliant strategy, and I applaud everything you're doing there. It's really remarkable, and it's very inspirational as well here, getting some ideas, and people can network and reach and get some good results. See, a lot of the people, they look up to their sports stars, their heroes, their musicians, and that's where they really take their information from, don't they? And when they see people that are athletes speaking out and taking a stand, then they feel more empowered to follow that path as well. So that's what we need, more influential people speaking out, don't we?
Yeah, they help a lot. I don't think that famous people realize what they do with just one statement or just one tweet, because like Nicki Minaj or these basketball players, I'm no fan of them necessarily, but I see what they say and how many people it gets thinking. And I just look at that. I take the good from it. People, they're a controlled Illuminati puppets. That may be the case. It may not. We can't prove that. But there is good that comes from it. Whatever person that talks about it, if they have a platform, they just reached a new audience and presented a new idea, and hopefully it was an uncomfortable one. So yeah, it's definitely effective. And that's why I actually want to try to support the Magic player. We have an Orlando Magic player who just came out against forcing the vaccine. And he just brought some great points to the press conference about natural immunity, and how healthy he is and how it just doesn't make sense to get it if you can still catch it and spread it, which is just great points. And yeah, I'd love to reach him. So hopefully we can with our campaign in the coming weeks. About, I've created signs before and it's happened to be in the right place at the right time and it's gone viral. And then the sign is so viral that I see other people in other countries around the world replicating the sign. And then people start sending me and saying, oh my gosh, look, people are making your sign in Germany and in Nova Scotia and all these different places. And I'm like, this is incredible. So the power of one public comment speech to your city mayor, the power of one rally and taking a picture of one sign or whatever it may be, you just don't underestimate the power of planting a seed, the power of public pressure, because I still think we win this. It's going to get worse before it gets better, but I do still think we win it. We just got to, like you said, stay positive and keep going, because I think even though you get arrested, even though the mayor calls me a liar and they call me a crazy anti-vaxxer that's killing people, I think that all that does at the end of the day is just make us go harder. So good luck.
Absolutely. This has been a very powerful broadcast. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. All the information will be in the description for people to contact you. Is there any closing statements that you'd like to leave for the viewers?
I think we pretty much covered it. There's only so much I think I can say to our viewers, because we sort of preach to the choir, and I know they're on the same page as us. But at the end of the day, it's our motto. Be the change you wish to see in the world, and you don't have to be out on the streets or creating content on the computer to be an activist. You can just start those uncomfortable conversations, wear that shirt, like something like this, no medical tyranny. Anything that you can do to make people think outside the box and opt out of the control system, because that's the only way. And we are the change, as your thing says in the corner.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for coming on the show once again. You're welcome back anytime. Best of success with everything in the future.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me, and good luck out there. Let me know if you need support. I'm going to keep sharing your stuff. If you need to get, donations really pushed or something, just let me know, and I'll put it all in all my stories and everything.
Much appreciated. Thank you very much.
No
Take
problem.
care.